Welcome to another episode of Sober on a Drunk Planet, the podcast. It's been a while since we did one, so I almost forgot the title of the own podcast there for a second. We're still on the Ambassador Special, so I'm very grateful for Harold for joining us all the way from Mexico, and he's going to share his story about how he got sober, about his life, and then obviously up to the point now where he's an ambassador for the Sober on a Drunk Planet community, which is held on Facebook. So if you stumble across this podcast, it's free to join. We're all in there. We're all trying to help each other stay sober. You don't have to have read the books, but it's always a good thing if you do. But yeah, Harold, thank you very much. Thanks again for being an ambassador. You've really been helping people in the group over the last couple of months, and it's been really like I've got one of the best jobs in the world. It's not a job because I get to see people like yourself get sober and get to see all the benefits of living a life without all the chaos that drink provides. So I'll hand over to you. You're in sunny Mexico at the minute.
Yeah. Yes. And thank you, Sean. As you stated, I came across one of your books on your online. Actually, it's the one right behind you. Sober on a Drunk Planet, the
I've
teal
I've I've
green.
got a new slight background because it used to just be the dog blind. But I thought, you know
Yeah.
what, I'll put my award and I'll put the books behind just
Well,
to
you know
change it
what?
up a bit.
That is very smart. When I watch different news programs and people promoting their books or anything, I always notice that it's always right behind. And
Yeah, yeah.
so very smart marketing. But yes, I just to give you a little background, I 58 years old, will be 59 this year. I live in Ajijic, Mexico, which is about 45-minute drive south of Guadalajara, just to give you perspective. I don't live at the beach, as most people who don't know geography think all of Mexico is on a beach, but I do live above the largest lake in Mexico, Lake Chapala. And I used to live in Palm Springs for 20 some odd years, worked as a real estate realtor and broker, but then COVID happened and got out of California and moved to Mexico because I already had a house here and decided that I loved it and retired here with my husband and don't regret the decision at all. And how I got to finding your book and your website, just to give background, is that I started drinking when I was a teenager. I was living in San Diego. And as with everybody has their story, and I won't go into all the gory details, but, the typical mother with mental health issues tried to commit suicide, parents divorce, questioning sexuality. All of that just led me to find, my parents' liquor cabinet. And so started with, just a little bit, and then it more and more and more. And, it just became, when I left home to go to university, found that the drinking still got worse. And the fact that I didn't know how to handle myself in social situations. I was new to living by myself, going to university. And, I look back at the times that I would go to the bar. I didn't have a car. I would walk home. I was drunk. I would stumble. I remember walking along the freeway, to get home, and I stumbled down, the hill, because I was so drunk. And, you know, things happen along the way. And then I got involved with an alcoholic, drug addict partner that lasted for 15 years and, tried to help him. And all the while I was drinking, just to, get through that as well. So whether I was enabling him or not, uh, it just progressively got worse. And even when I got to Mexico, um, my husband and I have been together for nearly 20 years, married 10 years this year, but several years ago, we entered into a polyamorous relationship, and which commonly known as a throuple. And that just made my drinking situation even worse in the fact that all of my insecurities, jealousy, everything just went, into overload. And just, I was just lashing out. And, I can always remember that, I had always been the funny, flirtatious, drunk. Yeah, but then I went, because the situation that I had entered, was that I became an angry and very bitter person. And last year, I really lashed out at both my husband and our partner and said some really, really horrible things that, even though a lot of the times I blacked out, I couldn't remember. I remembered what I said and how horrible I was. And it was there that I made the decision on, Valentine's Day of last year that I just couldn't do this anymore. And, and I just made that conscious decision. And before that, I was already reading your book, Sober on a Drunk Planet, and it just really resonated with me of, taking responsibility for my life. And once I read that book, I read all of the other ones. And then when Sienna's book came out, let's just say I read everything. And because I just, did not want to be that person anymore. And, and I can still remember, and I'm already getting a little misty right now thinking about it, but I had to make a change, and I just didn't want to be that angry, bitter person anymore. And, tired of 3 days of recovery of hangovers, regretting what I said, or even what the hell did I do, you know, it just scared me, into being sober. And so grateful, to be part of this group, because the one thing that I've learned, it's not so much the drinking. Now, the drinking is just a symptom. And, that all the stuff that I suppressed in my life from being a teenager to, up to last year, the drinking was just suppressing every emotion I ever had and how to deal with life. And so I think the hardest part for me has been how to deal with those emotions. And, each day, you know, is always, I wouldn't say a challenge, but as a learning opportunity, to learn how to deal with those emotions without having to take a drink.
Yeah.
And
And I must admit, Harold, that's the one thing. So when I asked you to be an ambassador, it's because you've been so open and honest about your self-awareness towards your own emotions and how you've dealt with them in sobriety, because it's emotional sobriety, and that is the toughest thing to do. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily get that. But was there anything that you did? Did you go to therapy or anything outside of the group that helped?
well, I'm still probably I haven't really done the therapy, but I think, certain issues that I'm going to need to do. And, probably because here in Guadalajara area, not a whole lot, but there are, online therapy like BetterHelp that I will probably explore. But I think the thing for me is just to be able to vent, and in a precise way where I'm not just babbling on. And, by having the outlet of the group of just posting what I'm feeling, and that really helped. And it's not all about, you know, oh, I did this great today. there are some days where I'm feeling like shit. I posted one, a few months ago where I always thought I posted one about Charlie Brown and how we're all supposed to be happy at Christmas, or we're all supposed to be happy about whatever, but I didn't feel that way. And so, you know, not only posting about the good stuff, but also posting about the bad stuff and just how you feel. Just the point is just to get it out has really helped me. I need to get into a better practice of journaling. I did read the 31-day challenge, but I tend to be a little bit of a procrastinator. So I find for me, it's easier to write out a post, to the group, but I haven't managed to do it on paper. So that's
Uh,
one
to,
thing
to,
that,
to be honest, I'm the same. Like, actually, I was skeptical at first about online sobriety groups, but actually, it is very cathartic writing out a post because I'm like you. I try to share as much as the bad stuff because it doesn't matter whether I've written a book. I still have struggles in my own life, like everyone
yeah,
else. Writing a book that doesn't make me susceptible to anything. Um, but yeah, it's just really cathartic. And then people are genuinely like they'll give their experiences. Like I always say to people, take them as suggestions because ultimately you are your own maker in terms of what you decide to do. Um,
yes.
and that definitely is a strength of the group is that I guess it is a form of journaling, like you said, and it's whatever works as well for people. So it doesn't have to be journaling if they find posting into the group or via other means, other support groups or whatever it is. It's just good to have
Yeah.
that as an additional tool.
Yes. And, the key is that there is no right way, no wrong way, of getting sober. You just have to, do what's right for you. And I have to do what's right for me. And so far, you know, it's working the way I'm doing it by, you know, talking to the group through post and just maybe some comment. The other day, I compared Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street, to as an analogy for me stopping drinking. Just little things that pop into my head that could possibly resonate with someone else. And so I just find it has worked for me. And just, I have to continue working on myself, without alcohol, because I know for a fact that one, I can't moderate, two, that I can go from zero to bitch in 2.9 seconds, if I drink. And so I'm just going to continue and, being an ambassador and reading the comments. And I try to reach out to people as much as I can and just, give them, what worked for me. But also too, it's trying to find that balance of saying what's on my mind without being too harsh, as well, because they're whether it's in this group or just in life in general. Now I'm finding, hey, I like that I'm speaking my mind and getting my feelings out, but I also don't want to be a dick about it, as
You,
being
you,
too
yeah, you
vocal.
know what? That's something I struggle with in the group. Like, I have to appreciate I'm 6.5 years sober. I retrained as a counsellor. I'm used to doing it from the other side and also having my own counselling. But I've got a hardened skin the more I get into my own sobriety. But I have to be mindful that people who are freshly sober, for example, might be commenting, and I have to reword stuff to be mindful of that
Yes.
because I'm not perfect. I can still say things actually which aren't the right way of
Yeah.
saying it.
Well, there's a phrase that my mom used to say, and I always remember it, and I still, say it today. And the phrase was, "What's coming out of your mouth, I wouldn't want to hold in my hand." So it's basically shit coming out of your mouth. And I have to be mindful whether I'm, sober or drunk. I have to watch what I say because I can be a little too blunt. And I want to be mindful of that when I'm commenting on the group, especially when someone is new or they're struggling or they are repeating the same thing, same mistakes or same patterns. And, part of me just wants to say, you know, wake up, but I have to be careful of what I say and whether online or in real life. So that's part of the sober journey for me is expressing the feelings, but without over expressing.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's just hard work, isn't it? I mean, managing emotions and trying to get the balance right is difficult, no matter what age you are. But when we're
yes.
trying to do it sober as well, you're it's almost in honor of being conscious and wanting to not please everyone, because I think people pleasing is a dangerous trait, but helping people in the right way, say, for example.
Yes. Exactly. And I never thought, what I had to say really, mattered. And, and so being part of this group and, getting the feedback from someone who's newly sober, that something that I said, actually resonated with someone. And that is what I love about this group, that people, you know, we've all been where everybody else has been. We all started somewhere and just that collective experience, you being, over 6 years, in sobriety and other people and just all coming together. And so it's been an eye opener for me, to be able to share my experience of what I've gone through this past year and that people are actually listening and that I have something to say or to contribute. But at the same time, not standing on my soapbox like I always used to do.
Yeah.
It's like, you should do this. It's like, no, no, no. I can't do that. You know, take what you like, leave the rest, as an old, AA slogan, but it's really, this group has been really helpful and I'm glad to be an ambassador and to be able to contribute.
Yeah,
So
and that's brilliant. That's exactly I think you summed it up perfectly with what the group's there to do. Like the group's not um it's not a replacement for therapy. Like for me, I don't go to AA anymore. I haven't done for over 5.5 years. And I feel like I'm spiritually well. I feel like I'm balancing my life better without a program as such. But
mhm.
having the Facebook group where we've all got different experiences within sobriety can still help to keep people on a moral route where they can probably see people dry drunks and all the isms that they used to talk about in AA.
Yes.
And it's a good mix because I think my experience of AA made me feel very isolated. Now, I was bullied as a kid, and I think that had a very big impact on why I like drink and drugs so much because it took away my overriding anxiety of social situations.
Yeah.
So you sort of put that in, you get addicted. And for me, having an online group is brilliant because it suits all my strengths. I'm a bit of an introvert. Like I love doing these things because I'm sat in home talking one to one. There's not a big group of people,
Yes.
and that's a safe space for me. Um, and that's why the group's a good outlet for me. Selfishly, I set it up to keep me sober. And I'm just glad we got people like yourself who can relate. It's funny when you mentioned about the what got you into drinking was your parents' liquor cupboard. It doesn't matter what age you are or where you are. That's exactly what got me into alcohol. My mum and dad had a liquor, an alcohol cupboard that had all the horrible old whiskies that no one ever
Hmm.
wanted to drink. And my first experience was drinking too much Irish whiskey and being horribly sick for hours. Oh,
Yeah. It's true. I look back, when I started this journey and just looking at old pictures and how it was a wake-up call of how uh, indoctrinated or brainwashed we are as a society, that I found an old picture of me and my younger sister, and it was someone's birthday. I don't know whose birthday it was, but I was probably about 5 or 6 years old, holding this green champagne glass, and my younger sister was holding on to the champagne bottle. And I'm going, oh my God, even at that young, because again, the liquor was always there. And I even remember after, my mom started to get better and she divorced my parents, but I remember that we moved into this other house and we ended up having this beer dispenser with this giant keg, and we would always there was always a pool party. And then the one thing that always stood out is my mom had either whiskey or scotch in this little container that looked like a cherub angel, and you press the button and it would piss out the booze. And that's where I got my that's where I started the booze with was that container.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
funny you
know,
mentioned about the champagne glass because I don't know if you had it, but I remember the first time I drank a form of champagne was called Baby Sham,
mhm,
and yeah, that was like
that was the gateway.
the gateway into harder alcohol.
You just, you start with that and you don't really care for it. And then you just start, acquiring a taste. But, you know, I look back on all the stuff, I thought it was funny at the time. I remember one incident, people tell me, that, yeah, I got out of the house to go to a party. I was probably about 15 and I was so drunk. My mom had, uh, locked the door, so I had to climb through the window, to get into, our apartment. Well, I couldn't get into my bedroom because I thought a horse was blocking the door to my bedroom. And my mom, of course, punished me, but at the same time, I'm sure she was just laughing the hell out of, you stupid drunk. And it just kind of progressed from there. And again, it's all for me as I'm learning, wasn't about the drink. It was just all about the, being a teenager, questioning sexuality, dealing with the terrible home life. And, everybody has their reasons. And it's just for me now, I'm on the journey of, dealing with all that stuff. And, that I can't change the past. All I can do is focus on now and, just move forward,
Yeah, I think that's
but
a big part, isn't it? Just sort of forgiving and forgetting your past self, because if you live with all that anxiety about everything that you've done in the past, it's only eating up what you can
yeah.
potentially do now.
And
It's all around presence and the power of now. Um,
yeah, and actually that's what I am reading, Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now.
it's honestly still the book that I listen to once or twice a week on audio every night since I got sober 6.5 years ago, and it was a big part of the book series I did as well, because you sort of osmosis, you take in what you're reading at the time, and that was
Yes.
a big part. Becoming present, like I don't worry about things. I mean, I look a bit horizontal these days, but I just there's no point.
Yeah. And that has been a challenge for me most of my life because I was always worried about everything. And even as a child, because I think, with my mother's, mental health issues and her attempted suicides, back then, you just didn't talk about those things. And so, I took on the role of making everything perfect, that, if everything was perfect, nobody could see what was on the inside going on behind, the doors. And it's funny how I always thought I was the only one and, everybody else in school was, had a perfect life. But a couple of years ago, I ran into a high school friend here in Mexico, and we spent the day together, and we were talking. Said, "Yeah, you were always, she was telling me you were always so, polite, and you were always nice." And we got into everything and discussing our childhood. Well, she had a fucked up childhood just like me, and I didn't even know that, and so, everybody else that I ever knew in school all had fucked up childhoods, and including another friend who ended up being, a meth addict, which I had no idea. And then later on, as we reconnected, she got clean and sober, and she got her master's degree in psychology, and she's now, a licensed therapist dealing with, addictions. So for me, learning that, thinking I was the only one going through this, everybody else was going through it. So the
Yeah.
point is, I can't focus, I can only focus on now, and I have to forgive myself for whatever happened in the past.
And
And
that's a big thing as well. Like comparison, I suffered a lot when I was younger, thinking people had these perfect lives, and if you just believe what you see on social media, then that's what your brain's going to be wired to. But like you said, you realize actually everybody is going through something. Nobody actually has any time to worry about necessarily if you're worried that people are thinking badly of you, for example. They're too
yeah,
busy with dealing their own shit. I mean,
yes,
trauma doesn't happen to everyone, but it happens to a lot more people than you'll ever know about. And you're all walking around school from ages, what, 5 to 18. Things are happening behind closed doors, things to parents, things to them. And it's only until the later years where alcohol and drugs come in that all these people then suddenly start trying to numb everything. Um,
yes,
and then, yeah, all end up in like mine was an AA room where I thought, fucking hell, there are loads of people with the same problems as me.
yeah.
I'm not the only nutter. Um,
it, it is so true, and it's comforting to hear that, that we're not alone. And, for many years, I always thought that. And then when I went into an Al Anon family group, through Betty Ford for my partner, and just listening to all of the family stuff of what other people, are going through. And it just made me realize that not alone. And also too, have, what? Someone else has it worse than you do. So be thankful. I have to be thankful. You know what? I've got my health, I've got a roof over my head. Just some of the stories that I've heard, that, what? Someone always has it worse than you, that we're all going through the same thing. So
yeah.
it was an eye opener for me.
And just to touch on, you mentioned your husband and your partner. So you've been sober over a year. What
Yes.
notices have they, and I guess any of your friends and family where you are, what have they noticed?
They have noticed that it's still a learning process. I mean, one thing that they notice that I'm calmer. They also notice that, I've been putting in the work this past year of getting healthy, getting, going to the gym. I've lost 30 pounds,
Wow.
and, so I stopped drinking, stopped eating crap, and just starting to exercise. But the one interesting thing that they called me out on was that I still had a tendency to be defensive, no matter, it could be whatever, and my husband didn't speak up on something because he said that I didn't want to endure the wrath of Harold. And I asked him, what he meant on that. And he says, well, and both of them, Alvaro's our partner, said, whenever we try to bring something up, you get defensive. Doesn't matter what it is. And, of course, the cackle started raising, and but then I had to say, you know what? You're right. And so uh they will call me out on my shit like they did when I was really heavily drinking. And but they noticed that I'm calmer. And also, too, they're now respecting, the boundaries because both of them still drink, and I will go out in social situations, but there are times where I'm just not going to go out every single night like sometimes they do. So I'll go to our local place like last night, our local hangout celebrating 3 years. So I went there. But if they just my friends decide to go out tonight, I won't go. But I will drop him off and give him a ride home. So,
And
but they've noticed I'm a lot calmer
that's brilliant.
to
And
answer.
like you said, losing weight, that has all self-confidence, and losing weight and being healthier is just a good thing for longevity, regardless of giving
Yes,
up alcohol. But you get that extra compound effect when you're not adding all those empty calories in. Now,
exactly.
I've got to cut short because I haven't renewed my hour-long Zoom thing. So we cut to 40 minutes. But I want to say, Harold, thank you very much for doing this. It's been great
Yes.
catching up, and
Well,
we'll speak again in the group, and we'll do another one in 6 months or a year's time.
okay. Well, I appreciate this conversation, Sean, and thank you for your books, the group. I'll